Alright, hello everybody. It has been a long time since I streamed a video, hasn't it? Well, hopefully that'll change soon. I just did a major move, and now that I'm kind of settled back in, I was checking some things out, and, well, welcome back to book club. A few of you left me a comment saying that I had accidentally, in The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Beddor, left out chapters 34, 35, and 36. Oh, that's my cat Whiskers chilling in the background if you just see her right now. So, don't mind her, pay attention to her, you can. So, again, this is a filler video just to get us back into things. We're going to go ahead and read out those chapters. Sorry for the wait. So, again, this is our book, The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Beddor. Yay! If you got it, you want to read it, follow along, please do so. If not, remember, get those doodling skills up to par. When you are doing two things at once and you're doodling, your mind is staying active, you're not getting bored, but, you can't, multitask, because then you won't pay attention like you're supposed to. And hopefully I am entertaining enough for you to want to pay attention to. Alright, so let's check it out. Let's go ahead and get started. Y'all may notice I look a little bit different, sound a little bit different. I don't know. It's been some time. I'm going to still try to do the voices for y'all. Or just, it'll come to me as it comes to me. So let's see what it does. Let's see what it does. Alright, let's start. Chapter 34. Red moon had risen. Its bloody light burned down on the chessboard desert through a cloud-clouded sky. Toxic vapors burping continuously out of the factory engaged in manufacturing Red's war machines. The cat skulked through the halls of the Mount Isolation Fortress, his own unease dwarfed by the violence of the sky over the steaming desert. A sky that became visible to him only as he entered the spiral-shaped hall leading to the observation dome, where Red waited for proof that her niece was no longer among the living. This was not a briefing the cat longed to make. He entered the observation dome and found his queen staring out of a telescopic panel at Wondertropolis, the walrus butler busy polishing the other panels with a cloth. Red's back was to him. Without turning around, she said, "I see you, but I don't see my niece's head." And before he could utter a syllable, her scepter speared him. The walrus gave a little jump and started for the exit. "Oh, I better check on. Stay where you are," Red shouted. "Yes, I still have plenty of work to do here, your imperial viciousness." Back to polishing the telescopic panels went the walrus butler. The cat stood unsteadily on two legs, Red's scepter jutting out of him. In theory, he was fortunate to have had 9 lives, but each death was painful. The cat sometimes wished for only 1 life. He fell to the floor, dead. Red stalked back and forth next to his lifeless body. She took hold of her scepter. The cat's eyes flickered open, and the wound in his chest healed. He slowly got to his feet, licking himself clean. "Tell me how you managed to fail this time," Red demanded. "The Allisons reached her first. We chased them back through the pool of tears, but—" "Alice in Wonderland?" "Unacceptable!" Red screeched, and again the cat felt the stinging mortal blow of her scepter. The walrus blubbered and dropped his polishing cloth, bent to pick it up, and bumped his head against a telescopic panel. Red tried to pinpoint Alice's location in her imagination's eye, saw a confusion of foliage and trees, a forest of some kind. But there were many forests in the queendom. "Where is Bidwith hair? Where is Bidwith heart?" That's right. "I want the royal secretary here, now." "I'm sorry, your imperial viciousness," said the walrus, rubbing his head. "Truly very sorry. but Bibwood Hart is not here. No one's seen him since. He's with the Allisons now. The cat had regained consciousness and lay on the floor watching his wound heal. No more unwelcome news out of you, my feline friend, Red threatened. She motioned with her fingers, and the cat found himself standing upright. Come with me. She swooped out of the room, her heels click-clacking on the polished floor. Casting a last squinty-eyed glance at the walrus, the cat followed Red down the spiraling hall, through dim rooms of questionable purpose, to the vacuum shaft that shot them into the bowels of the fortress. They entered an enormous room in which an army of glass eyes stood in columns, waiting for orders. As Red opened her mouth to speak, she projected her holographic, anger-gnarled face onto Wondertropolis billboards and government-sponsored poster crystals. Wonderlanders pausing amid their various jobs and activities to listen to her spew the words she spoke to the glass eye at Mount Isolation. Loyal subjects, there is a pretender to the throne in our midst. She calls herself Alice Hart. Your assistance in her capture, in her death, is hereby commanded. She is in one of our forests. Find her by the time my moon sets, or I will burn every forest in Wonderland. Whoever accomplishes this will be rewarded with the knowledge that she or he has earned my eternal favor. Red's face vanished from the city's billboards and posters, replaced by the usual advertisements of Red's Hotel and Casino, Red Apartments, Jabberwocky Matches, and reward offers for reporting followers of white imagination. Wonderlanders went back about their business, though, to be sure, there were some who considered Red's eternal favor worth having and would do what they could to find Alice Hart. Back at Mount Isolation, the last of the glass eyes streamed out of the forest into the desert. Red turned to the cat, her voice echoing through the empty room. Tell Jack of Diamonds it's time he proved his loyalty once and for all. Oh man, getting back into the steam of things, y'all. Whew. Now let me tell you something. I may stutter and spout a little bit, but we all do that sometimes. If you ever called upon to read, just know that reading on the spot, now that's a skill that you practice, you work towards, you build up to it. We'll get better with time. Right now I'm just a little bit thirsty. I ain't got no water right now. I should have had my bottle of water somewhere close by, but let's go ahead and continue. All right now. Chapter 35. She hadn't really intended to sleep, had just wanted to be alone to think things over. How long since I was standing beside Leopold in Westminster Abbey? It seems so long ago, such a terribly long time ago. What's become of him? And the Liddells? What do they think has happened to me? What are they doing this very moment? She had grown to love them. Perhaps as a kidnapped person grows to love those who hold her captive, but it was love. Alice knew that now. All of this thinking solved nothing, and it was a relief when Bibwood entered the tent carrying a small, neatly folded stack of clothes. Please put these on, Alice, he said. I'll wait for you outside. It was an Allison uniform, makeshift as all things Allison had to be in the Red-controlled queendom. The shirt and trousers didn't match in color. Their particular weaves of nanofibers was coarse by Wonderland standards, and yet, rubbing the hem of the shirt between her index finger and thumb, Alice knew it to be smoother and softer than the finest silk in England. Yes, they were plain garments, as plain as anything worn by the poor in Genevieve's time, but with one difference: the faded badge of a white heart on the end of the right shirt sleeve. Alice stripped out of her wedding gown and, torn as it was, carefully laid it on the general's cot. She dressed herself in the Allison outfit and wanted to know what sort of figure she made in the unfamiliar clothes. But there was no looking glasses in the tent. Nothing left to do. Must face the future, whatever it holds. With a decided breath and a firming up of the shoulders, she stepped out of the tent. Bibwood came forward with beaming countenance and took both her hands in his. He looked her up and down, approving of what he saw. Were you to wear one, Alice, you could make the saddle blanket of a spirit dame look regal. Thank you, Bibwood, but no buts. You've just returned to us, and it is too soon to express whatever doubts you undoubtedly have with the most cowardly of words that qualify a qualifier's but. Alice smiled, more a matter of facial muscles than of feeling. It's good to see you're still the same old Bibwood Hart, she said. After our recent clash with the cat, I thought you might have become a man of heroic action and no longer cared for the subtleties of the intellect. I, a man of heroic action? I leave such things to others. But of course I am the same old Bibwood Hart, Alice. I am the same precisely because I am old. I tutored your great-grandmother's grandmother, and yes, I remember. I've seen enough political upheavals to fill countless heads. Nothing has changed me yet. I admit that this red business is the worst I've experienced, but I'm much too old to change. Now enough about me, though I am a fascinating subject. Come. I like that. I'm going to use that. He led her to an arrangement of weathered, empty ammunition containers that served as a seating area. Lowering himself onto a container that had once held orb generators, fresh from Red's factory, Bibwood's expansive brown robe huddled around him. He looked like a small brown volcano with a white head. Tea was brought by a young girl wearing a Homburg hat and cracked leather overcoat, so timid in Alice's presence that she didn't dare raise her eyes to look at the princess. She's a shy one, Alice said after the girl had hurried off. Not usually. It's you that makes her so. She was born here, in this very camp. Do you know what they call themselves? All of these people? Alice shook her head. How could she know? Allisons. Bibwood spelled it out. Her heart gave a little jump. Allisons? They ask too much of me. I don't think I'm ready for all of this, she said. Bibwood studied her a moment, his ears twitching and swiveling in response to every passing sound. He described the changes that Wonderland had suffered in the past 13 years. And though his wisdom covered many subjects, there were things even he didn't understand, most of which concerned her. So then it was her turn to talk, to try to explain what felt inexplicable. I had to turn my back on all my Wonderland memories, she said. I had to shut my mind to them in order to survive in a world that didn't believe. I resisted for a long time, but it became... So that's why you were to be married? Alice nodded. I will always belong partly to that other world now. Wisely put. You can't spend so much time in a place and not carry a bit of it inside you. But this is your rightful home, Alice. This is where you belong. Is it? She looked around. How can they call themselves Allisons when I hardly feel Allison myself? It's too much. They ask too much. It seems to me that I no longer quite belong anywhere. And what about the family I left behind? What about Leopold, the man I was to marry? We will provide for the people who nurtured you as their own, if we have the luxury to do so in the future. As to this Leopold character, we have more important things to consider than one man's love, be he of this world or any other. Alice caught sight of Dodge staring at them from behind the tent. She raised a hand to wave, but he ducked out of sight and didn't show his face again. You have a powerful imagination, Alice, said Bibwood Hart. The Allisons will need it, and the fate of the queendom depends on it. In what little time we have, my job is to educate you in its uses and limitations according to the precepts of white imagination. It's gone. Bibwood's large eyes crimpled in perplexity. Your imagination has not gone, Alice, because there's nowhere it can go to. It is within you whether you like it or not. You will see. You were born to be a warrior queen, like your mother. But here the wise tutor paused, remembering Alice sitting backward on the spirit den after she'd emerged from the pool of tears. She had been disoriented, of course. Yes, better to think positive thoughts. You will fight alongside your army, he continued, and you will face Red because only you have the strength and power to defeat her. A warrior queen? Alice scoffed. What do I know of warfare or weaponry? The only time I've lifted a sword was when Dodge and I used to play our juvenile games. By successfully navigating the Looking Glass maze, you will evolve to Warrior Queen. The maze will release what's inside you. Alice shook her head doubtful. How the Looking Glass maze will accomplish this, even I can't say, Bibwood continued. And Queendom Sparamus once stated, only she for whom the Looking Glass maze is intended can enter. I look forward to the day when you can tell me what's inside. I don't know, Bibwood. I just don't know. Wasn't it possible that she might no longer be the rightful heir to the crown? Her years and experiences in that other world had severed the girl she was from the woman she was supposed to have become. Red did away with 2 generations of heart rulers that horrific afternoon. Tell me about Dodge, she said. Bibwood was quiet for a long time. None of us is the same since Red's return. Some of us are more changed than others. As to the man Dodge Anders has become, I think it best to let you discover that for yourself. The tutor hopped to his feet. Well, we'll soon be making the trip to the Valley of Mushrooms, where the caterpillars will instruct you. Finish your tea, collect your thoughts, and then we will begin the lesson we should have begun 13 years ago. Alice watched Bibwood scurry off. Not having touched her tea, with no thought of what she was doing or where she was going, she stood and walked through the camp. Allisons gathered outside their tents or cooking food over gemstone fire pits bowed to her as she passed. Some shouted, "In Alice we trust," others declared, "May the light of white imagination again shine on Wonderland, my princess." Alice tried to look as hopeful as she could under the circumstances. Allisons. They call themselves Allisons. Now see where I've ended up? She stood outside a tent. Not just any tent. His. Her feet carrying her there almost without her knowing. Should I announce myself or? But no need. Here he was, stepping out of the tent. "Hello," she said. Dodge tensed, pushed out his chest, and stood with his back straight. "Princess?" He was surprised, caught off guard. She could see that. "Was there something you wanted?" she said. "Before, when Bibwood's told you that we'll have to risk a journey to the Valley of Mushrooms." "Yes." Had thought, hoped it was something else, but what exactly? "Dodge, do you really think I can lead a battle against Red's forces?" "I do." "That makes one of us. I'm sure it's too late for whatever Wonderland expected of me. I'd ask you to take me home, but I no longer have any idea where that is." She felt unbearably sad all of a sudden, and wished that someone, anyone, would put a comforting arm around her. But her pout only seemed to harden Dodge, to make him even more callous toward her. "There's something you need to see," he said. If the future of the queendom weren't at risk, and if Dodge weren't being so cold and distant toward her as he had led her out of the Allison headquarters, Alice might have been able to convince herself that they were heading off on a harmless adventure, as they used to do in simpler times. It's a pretty heavy chapter. Okay, I admit I did laugh a little bit in that last part, but I was just kind of giddy when you said, when men kind of stiffen up around you, it's so cute. He liked you, but you don't think he liked you, but I know he liked you. I'm just saying he liked you. Okay, let's continue. Okay, chapter 36. Jack of Diamonds tramped through the everlasting forest. Yeah, let me restart that. Jack of Diamonds tramped through the everlasting forest carrying a case the size and shape of a bread box. Prove my loyalty? Haven't I proved it time and time again? Haven't I turned in traitors who dared to steal her weapons? Haven't I kept her informed of Allison's activities? If just once she didn't let herself be governed by her temper. A summit. That's how I would have dealt with it. Pretend to grant Allison statehood, lull them into complacency. I would marry the princess while remaining loyal to Queen Red, and she'd control the Allisons through me. That's the way to handle things. But all anybody around here wants to do is fight. A kitten the color of burnished gold poked its head out of the top of the case. No, you don't, Jack said to the animal. You'd better stay out of sight altogether. He put a fat palm on the kitten's head and tried to push it back into the case, but the kitten hissed, open-mouthed, and scratched him with a nimble paw. Ow! Jack tossed the case to the ground, sucked at his wounded hand. The surrounding trees twittered. Jack could see the kitten's tail whisking back and forth at the top of the case, but the animal made no sound. Wasn't he in a favorable position here? He had his arch rival stuffed in a bag. He could easily do away with the little kitten. Yes. Then Red would have to rely on him and him alone for counsel. And he'd convince her to enact plans of which he could take better advantage. But what of the task at hand? The ambush? And what if Red were watching him right now in her imagination's eye? No. He'd better wait. To get rid of the kitten was too risky at present. But at the first opportunity. He picked up the case and continued on through the forest. The kitten's tail, still snaking up out the top of the case, brushed against his hand. He paused and looked around. Now, where was Allison headquarters? He always had trouble finding it. To the left, maybe? Yeah, definitely to the left. But after going a couple hundred paces, he decided it must have been the other way. But 400 or so paces in the opposite direction seemed to bring him no closer. He was lost. The kitten growled. But then a wink of sunlight on a crystal shooter caught Jack of Diamond's eye. 2 Allison guards patrolling the perimeter of the headquarters. Aha! He knew it had been close. But perhaps, now that violence was near, it would have been better to stay lost. He approached the guards with a cautious tread, the color draining from his face, making it almost as pale as his beloved wig. We must increase security now that Alice is here, he said, coming upon them. I have requisitioned more perimeter guards. If you believe it necessary, Lord Diamond. Obviously I do. Yes, sir. Is the Mirror Keeper about? Not at present, sir. Ah, well. Jack shifted his weight from one leg to the other. He had started to sweat. His scalp itched horribly. Any idea when he'll be back? No, sir. Oh. He felt the kitten moving inside the case, impatient. I have something for him. The guard said nothing. Maybe one of you should take a look at it? If the guard who volunteered had had the time, he might have noticed that Jack of Diamonds was trembling. But as soon as the unfortunate fellow held his face over the opening of the case to see what was inside, out came the two manly arms of the cat. Jack stumbled backwards, dropping the case. But before it hit the ground, while the guard was screaming, the cat morphed into full assassin and did away with both guards. A wave of alarm passed through the trees and shrubs of the forest. The cat turned to Jack, his claws dripping blood. Summon the cut. Jack reached into a pocket with bumbling fingers. He raised the marble crystal bubble to his lips and blew into it. Nothing. It was a sound for the cut alone. He heard them coming. The scissor sound of their stalking limbs, 3 decks in all, 156 soldiers. I think I should wait out here, Jack of Diamonds managed. I don't want my position with Red to be compromised, which it will be if I'm seen by a general doppelganger or any of the others. The cat knew better, but it was alright. The cowardly Jack of Diamonds would only get in his way. Do what you want, he spat, and accompanied by the high cards of the cut, he pounced into the Allison headquarters while the lower numbers began smashing its perimeter mirrors. Alright, so we know what kind of cloth Jack of Diamonds is cut from. I know it's been a long time waiting, you guys, but that was it. Chapter 34, 35, and 36, what was missing from the Looking Glass Wars in our book club series. And not only that, we will get back started on book 2 next time. As for this, again, go ahead and position it where it's supposed to be in your reading, and hopefully the rest will just follow along from here. I'll see y'all next time. Be safe, everybody. This has been Toyzilla again with Toyzilla's Book Club. Peace.